Hi, welcome to Lights Camera Author. I'm Jim Juno, and I am coming to you today from Richmond, Virginia, home base for me. And I have with me a person who is about a half a world away. She's in, her name, first off, is Tyler Mahoney. And if you've watched any of the Discovery Channel's Gold Rush, you've probably seen her on that show. And you have a new book out called Gold Digger: Finding the Mother Lode in a Man's World. Tyler, and now you are in Southern Australia?
Firstly, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And I'm in Western Australia. So I live in a place called Kalgoorlie, which is pretty much in the outback of WA.
Right. So basically and it's exact a 12-hour time difference between Richmond, Virginia and Kalgoorlie, Australia. So I appreciate you taking time this morning for you and tonight for me. So now your new book, Gold Digger. Now this is now I'm going to clarify this first, is that you are actually a prospector, and
Yes.
that is, and like in America, gold digger has a different meaning, so but you were, like I said, you were on the TV show Gold Rush, and there's a science that goes into prospecting, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. It's funny. The book is called Gold Digger, and I think in Australia and most parts of the world, the term gold digger definitely has another meaning. So that was a part of the tongue in cheek with naming the book. But I am an actual gold digger as well. I find gold in the ground. So there's definitely an art to it. My family's fourth generation gold prospector, and it's a bit of a dying art, I would say. It's not just as easy as going out into the bush and digging around and gold pops up. We do prospecting is the art of following the gold, reading the land, the geology, finding it, and then once you find the gold, either tracking it to its source or working out the best way to mine the patch. There's a lot that goes into it, but I definitely do love my job.
I see. Now my knowledge of prospecting is like the old bearded guy with a pan in the river, sifting the soil to see if he can find little nuggets of, but it's quite different, isn't it?
Well, you're not too far off. That is the stereotype. I'm a little bit different for a gold prospector. Gold prospecting is definitely like, you think back to the original gold rush and it's a pick and a shovel and men out in the fields. And these days, because of the TV shows, it's definitely become a lot more accessible, I think, to people. But you're not too far off with your stereotype, except where I'm from, we don't have any water. So I live out in the desert. So our gold prospecting doesn't involve rivers and pans as much. We use dry blowers and loaders and metal detectors. Sometimes we can set up a bit of a wash plant if we're going to be mining in a place that has a well for a very long time, but that's few and far between out in the desert.
Can you make a living off of this? Because in your book you say the best way to make 1 million is to start with 2 million.
I think if you ask any gold miner, they'll tell you that. You know what? My dad always says it's baked beans or lobster in the gold game. You have those days, those weeks where you're just not on a run, you're not on color, and then out of thin air, a good run will appear, and you're back on the gold. So it's definitely not a stable way to live. It's not a stable income. There's no sick days paid out or super from your boss. So I love it though. I love the excitement of, tomorrow could be the day I find $1 million. I love that kind of excitement, but it's not for everyone.
I can imagine. I mean, I don't think I would survive too long, because I'm too used to having like a house and and a home studio and stuff, and having a weekly paycheck, so to speak. So, but
Yeah, definitely.
but
No, I'm very lucky as well. I have my like I said, I'm fourth generation, so I've been doing it for such a long time. So I have a plethora of contacts and resources, and my family, we have a lot of mining tenements. So we don't just prospect for gold, we also mine for gold. So we are lucky that we can make a very comfortable living off it. And we definitely have a lot of those lobster days. But in saying that, if I didn't come from this family, I don't think I would be able to go out on my own with none of this experience or resources and help, and just make a good life for myself. I'm very lucky that I do come from a family that's made it a lot more accessible for me.
Like you said, you're the fourth generation of prospectors. Um, you did mention something just a moment ago. You said that you not only pan for gold, you mine for gold. What what
Mhm.
is what is the difference between panning and mining?
So prospecting and mining. Prospecting is reading the ground. It's reading the geology. There's a lot of indicators that come with finding gold. So contact zones and so topography. There's a lot that goes into it. So reading that and kind of going, all right, these are some good gold indicators. Doing the research. I think there should be gold there. Getting to the ground and reading kind of how the earth is moving and finding the gold. That's prospecting. There's a art of prospecting called loaming, which the old boys used to do to find mine sites, and it's basically um, panning the side of a hill, loaming the side of a hill to try and find where the source of gold is coming from. All of that is prospecting. And then when you actually find a really good gold patch, or you find the gold source like an ironstone lode or a quartz reef, getting that out of the ground and processing it and working that ground is mining. So a lot of our mining is alluvial gold nuggets. So it's gold nuggets that have moved from the source via earth and water movements. So we would have big old creek beds. There's no water. They're like 6 foot under the ground, for example. Old riverbeds where gold has come down and it's kind of fallen there and it's sitting there now. We would use our loader to dig back the topsoil to get to the old riverbed and to find the nuggets. That is mining. So prospecting and mining go hand in hand, but you can just be a gold prospector. A lot of people in Australia will get their metal detectors and kind of head out into the bush and swing around and find nuggets. That's more prospecting. So the lines are kind of blurred, but they do go hand in hand.
See, my knowledge, like I said, from movies like The Treasure of Sierra Madre or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or Yukon Cornelius throws his pickaxe in the air, that sort of thing. And
Close.
but yeah, but like you said, you're fourth generation prospector, and now I'm going to say your great grandfather is that who got started in the business?
Great grandfather, Ned,
Great.
my great grandfather, Ned, and he was a prospector before the modern times. So he used to shaft for gold. So he used to make mine shafts, which is doesn't happen these days. So he was kind of the last generation of the old timers.
Okay, so now when you told your parents you wanted to become a prospector like them, were they thrilled, or did they want to like you to go to college or have you went to college?
Yeah,
Because
it's funny. It's they because I've just done it for my whole life. But then when I finished high school, I went to university for a year. I had in my head that I wanted to get out of the red dirt and the gold world. I was like, no, I want to move to the big city. I want to go spread my wings. So I went and did that. I studied for a year. I dropped out of uni and I moved to Melbourne, which is very, very different world from where I'm from. And I did modeling. I worked as an events manager. I kind of did the opposite of the world I was from. And then after a couple of years of doing that, I realized that I just missed the red dirt and missed the gold. And then I came back to the desert, came back to Kalgoorlie to prospect with my family and mine with them. And I do that now hand in hand with running my business, have an online gold dealership. So yeah, it's funny though, when my father, my brother and myself, we went up north to a really remote part of the outback. It was a couple of years ago now, but to place a station. So a station in Australia is kind of like your ranches, just like
Mhm.
tens of thousands of hectares of the outback where people run cattle stations. And we used to spend a lot of time on them when I was a child prospecting, and me and my brother would ride on motorbikes and live out in the bush for months at a time. And we went back to a place that we basically lived out as kids out in the middle of the outback. And my father, myself, and my brother, we found an ironstone lode, which is really exciting as a prospector. It's the source. It's kind of what you're finding all these nuggets. You want to figure out where they're coming from. And we kind of tracked it back on the top of the hill. We found an ironstone lode. And it was just a hill just above a place that we used to tear up and down on our motorbikes. So it was really funny. And as we were digging out the ironstone lode, I said to Dad, like, "Oh, do you remember like 20 years ago you were here with my brother, like Reese and I, and running amok. Did you think like in 20 years time, we'd all be back here together as full-time prospectors running a family business? And he looked at me, my brother, and he said, no, I didn't think you were that fucking stupid. Excuse my French. But
That's okay.
that's exactly what I said.
You know, the amazing thing also is that now, how did you land the gig on Gold Rush?
So my parents owned a gold dealership in Kalgoorlie. They were gold miners and ran the only gold dealership in the goldfield. So they had a lot of contacts. And there's a TV version of Gold Rush, an Australian version of Gold Rush, sorry, called Aussie Gold Hunters. And Aussie Gold Hunters was just starting up, and they came to Kalgoorlie to find prospectors to film. And they came into the gold shop, and mum and dad said no for the first couple of seasons, or the first season, because my parents are bush bogans. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the term bogan, but they don't like people and they just like to live out in the bush. But they finally said yes. And then this was about the same time that I was moving back to Melbourne to get back into prospecting. So I did a couple of seasons with them. And then through that, the gold game's very small. Parker basically wanted to come to Australia to find some ground here to mine. And through some contacts with my dad and Parker's mutual contacts, we got in contact. So then I flew out to, within a week, this happened very quickly. Within a week, I flew out to Canada to meet Parker. They wanted to make sure we obviously got along. We got along. Then we flew back to Australia, filmed Australia's Parker's Trail. And then a year later, I filmed New Zealand Parker's Trail with Parker. And then the following year, sorry, that same year, I went and did Gold Rush in Canada and Alaska.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's you racked up some of the frequent flyer miles there, haven't you?
Oh my God. In 2022, I did New Zealand Parker's Trail, Canada Gold Rush, Alaska Gold Rush, and South America Parker's Trail. I did like over 50 flights in the year. I was going all
Uh,
over the joint.
and these are not flights that go from, like, say, in America, you're not going to go from one part of the country to another in an hour. These are what,
Oh
are
no.
these 23-hour flights? I imagine something like that.
Oh God, yeah, they're awful. So to get back from South America, I had three internal flights in Bolivia, and then I flew Bolivia to Madrid, which was like 10 plus hours. And I flew Madrid to Doha, which was another huge leg. And then Doha to Perth, which was another like 10 plus hour leg. And then I flew Perth to Kalgoorlie, and then I drove Kalgoorlie to Kambalda. So it was about 6 days for me to get home.
Oh my gosh. That's not accounting for weather either, you know. So in case you
No,
run into bad weather.
exactly.
In your
Yeah.
in your book, you mention that it doesn't matter how being a woman, I mean, let's face it, you're a minority in a man's world. You're a woman in a man's uh basically it's all men. I don't I
Mhm.
don't I don't know of any other female prospectors.
Mhm.
And you say that no matter how good you are, you're always going to be judged on your looks before your abilities,
Mhm. Yeah,
especially with
definitely.
TV. Yeah.
Oh God, that just opens up a whole nother kettle of fish, that does. But yeah, definitely like my grandma was a prospector, and she was really the start of kind of women in prospecting, and she kind of paved the way for me. I'm really lucky I've had her and my mother. My mum's generation, there was a few more women that came through, and now with my generation, I'm in a big mining town, and there's just been such a great influx of women getting into mining, which is so great to see. And we have come so far with women being accepted in that world, because it is very male dominated. But we still have so far to go, and people like to argue me on that. But I have lived experiences, and it's things that I don't think a lot of people would kind of realize, that can knock your confidence and make you feel like you're not meant to be in the room or meant to be at the table, or even when you get a spot at the table, actually being heard at the table. And it's these kind of like invisible hurdles that they all add up, and it just makes it it's just a very different journey for, say, my brother, who has similar experience to me and similar skills. I'd say we're very equals in the field. But yeah, you can just tell when we both walk into a room, he has given respect automatically, and it's something that I've always had to earn. So yeah, it's just something that like I like to advocate for it, because mining, especially in Australia, there are so many opportunities to earn such great money working at big hard rock mines, and great ways to further your career. So I really want women to feel confident in going into that space and taking up room and being heard and having the same opportunities that their male peers would have.
Excuse me. The also, I imagine there was a lot of pressure from the men on Gold Rush when they brought you in. What was that like?
Definitely. I'm lucky that Parker, he's great. I've never experienced any kind of misogynistic comments or anything like that from him, and he squishes anyone that is like that. But there is men are used to men being on mine sites, so having a woman come in, it's very different for them. It's not something that they're used to, and I just think, like, for example, when I was in Bolivia, I were at a mine site, and women aren't allowed to mine in Bolivia because it's against their culture. It's a very complicated subject. But I was one of the first women to kind of operate machinery at their mine site. And I always try and be respectful of culture, but they were making comments of we want to human sacrifice her, she's gonna make our gold dry up. So it's things like yeah, it's hard when you don't always feel safe where you're working. And I have always been surrounded by a really great film crew and great like Parker's been great and stuff. But yeah, definitely not everyone else in the outside world is as accepting.
I can imagine. And also in your book, I mean, you're honest with your the troubles that you've had. You're bipolar. You admit it. I can't imagine that going through something like what you just described helped in any way. I mean, how's the I mean, how are you doing now?
Oh, I'm so much better now. When I first did the original Parker's Trail Australia, that's when I just got diagnosed. Within 2 weeks, I was on a plane to Canada. So, and I really didn't understand it fully. I didn't know what it meant and how to kind of control the symptoms and what was the trigger and what wasn't. So, bipolar is basically it's a mood disorder. It's characterized by manic highs and then extreme depressive lows. So it's not just about like feeling moody on a Saturday morning. It's like the absolute extremes when it comes to mood and emotion. Um, and so like now I definitely am so much more aware of my triggers. So like obviously going out and drinking and doing drugs is a really bad trigger. Keeping healthy by exercising, making sure that I'm eating well, seeing friends, taking my medication, seeing a psychologist. These are all things that make my life now like so livable. Like it doesn't really affect me too much on the day to day now. But definitely in my past, like I spoke about in the book, it was something that I have like struggled with for a very long time.
Right, and it takes a long time for people to get the medicine straight too, I imagine.
Oh yeah, getting diagnosed, you can't just go down to your GP and they chuck a diagnosis on you. You have to be diagnosed by a psychiatrist. I don't know how the system is in America, but in Australia, we do have a good mental health care system, in the fact that we get like 10 free sessions with a psychologist, and our medication is very cheap. But it's also like an internal battle to like firstly think like, okay, I have a problem, and then like I have a lot of privilege in that I can drive myself to appointments. I can afford the overpay fee. So I am very lucky that and I could get into a private psychologist very quickly because I have the means to do so. But yeah, I'm just so grateful that I do have that privilege, because for a lot of people in Australia that aren't as lucky as me, it is like a real big struggle to get the help you need. You get to a place where you're finally like, yeah, okay, I do want the help. I do accept I have a problem. And then the system kind of fails you a little bit. So yeah, it's not an easy feat to get to the place of feeling better.
Yeah, in America, we simply turn them into politicians.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I spent a little bit of time in the States. I know what you're saying.
The no, what's going on now? Are you still on Gold Rush, or are you temporarily off the show? I mean, I mean, how's that going to work?
So in 2022, I did, like I said, 3 seasons of television, which is like unheard of. Um, Basically, it was 10 months of filming. And when you're filming on Gold Rush, you work, well, not just filming, when you're working it, because it's a real mine site, you work 7 a.m. till 7 p.m., 7 days a week, and you don't have a day off because the mining season's so short. So I went through a really big year in 2022. And then 2023, I decided to stay in Australia. There wasn't really, because the Alaska mine site that I was on in Gold Rush, there was no gold. We mined for a season, there was no gold. So to come back to Gold Rush meant that I would have to go back to the Canadian mine site. And my job just didn't exist at the Canadian mine site, basically. It was a lot more established and my role wasn't there. So I would have had to be in a machinery operating position. And I'm very fortunate I have so much going on in Australia. So I really came back here to concentrate on that, grow my company, the Prospectors Club, the gold dealership. And then Parker's Trail Brazil just happened. That was the first Parker's Trail I haven't done in 5 years. And they went with a local woman who could speak Portuguese. So makes sense. They needed someone who spoke Portuguese, but it meant that I didn't do the show. So this year, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm not sure if another season has been greenlit or where they're going or what's going on. I would love to go do something in the TV realm that's more my own thing, but these things take time. So, just chipping away at it and seeing what happens.
So you liked being on the TV show?
I enjoyed the fact that it's great for my business, honestly. Like the exposure, I wouldn't be where I am right now without that TV show. I'm so thankful for that, and I'm so lucky that it's given me so many opportunities. But it's very tiring, and filming 3 seasons of television in 1 year was quite a lot for me. I definitely needed a break from it. But now I've had a good break. I had a year off TV, so I definitely enjoy getting back into it. It's also I got to go to Bolivia, Peru, Canada, Alaska, New Zealand, these amazing places in the world that I would never get to go if it wasn't for television. So I'll always be so grateful for that. And if any more TV opportunities come through, I'll be very grateful.
I want to talk a little bit before it ends. Talk about the business. You've mentioned it a couple of times. Help me. How can people find it on the web?
Yeah, so basically because of the TV show again, I had a lot of international customers wanting to buy Australian gold. Our gold, I'm a bit biased, but our gold is very pure and very beautiful and very big. So we are very lucky. And I sell our gold that we find, but my parents only sell the smallest amount just to pay all the bills. We don't sell all our gold because we want to keep it, for obvious reasons. So I had all this demand. I was like, okay, I need to get supply. So I started a gold dealership where I buy gold off local prospectors and friends who are miners. And I put it on my website, the Prospectors Club. We're on Facebook and Instagram and whoever website. And I basically do monthly gold drops. So once a month, I'll sell it. I'll put it all on the website and then people will buy it. I send it all over the world. And then for the next 3 weeks, I accumulate more gold and do the process again.
That's fantastic. And you've said something which I didn't realize. You said the Australian gold is very beautiful, and I'm sure it is. But I didn't realize different parts of the world, the gold is different. It's not. It's not. When we say gold in America, we just think gold, But there's different categories of gold, isn't there?
Definitely. So I'm from a very big gold mining town. It's not the gold mining I do, though. I do alluvial gold mining, which is very, very few people do it. The big gold mines where I'm from, like the Super Pit that have 1,000 employees, they're hard rock mines. So they mine the source of the gold, which is gold in ore. So to get the gold out, you have to crush down the ore, you have to run cyanide through it. It's a whole process. It's not gold nuggets. Whereas the mining that they do on Gold Rush is placer mining. So that's alluvial gold that has traveled in big glacial movements. So it's really fine and really small. And then my gold is also alluvial gold, but it hasn't been through those huge glacial movements that Canada and the Yukon and Alaska see. So that's why we get big, chunkier gold nuggets. And the purity ranges for us between 95 to 98%, whereas the gold in the Yukon is more like 85%. So yeah, gold everywhere is different, and I could talk about that subject for hours and hours.
Have you ever been to the Gold Coast in California, where I think the original prospectors in America went to? You ever been there?
No, but that is high on my bucket list. The 69ers, not the 69ers, God, no, the
49ers.
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 49ers. They invented the dry blower. So the dry blower is our version of a wash plant because we don't have any water. And it's not as good as a wash plant, but we make do. But the 49ers invented that. So they started with dry panning. They would get one pan on the ground and then another pan up here, no water, put the pay dirt in the top, and they would tip it into the pan below. And on a windy day, and the wind would blow away all the small fines, all the stuff you don't want. And they would just keep going back and forth, dry panning. And that kind of grew into a dry blower. Well, they started with like more of a dry sieve. They would shake, shake, shake and use wind and air. And now today we have these huge 20-ton dry blowers because of the 49ers.
Wow, that's incredible. So to this day, the
Yeah.
1849ers are making a contribution. That's
Oh
fantastic.
yeah, the 49ers have done a lot for us. So thank you, the Californians.
Well, the author's name is Tyler Mahoney. She's on the TV show Gold Rush on the Discovery Channel. Her new book is out now. It's published by Viva Press. It's called Gold Digger: Chasing the Mother Lode in a Man's World. And you can find it on Amazon, I guess barnesandnoble.com too, or going to your brick and mortar store and just having them order it for you. Tyler, I really want to appreciate you taking time a half a world away from Richmond, Virginia.
No, thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. That was a great chat. Thank you.